told boxing fans back in the late 80s, throughout the 90s, come 2024, a 58-year-old Mike Tyson will be taking on a YouTuber. They will probably just ask, what is a YouTuber? But the second question would be, Mike Tyson is fighting at 58 years old. Here we are. It does indeed, though, have fireworks all over this one. Jake Paul may have started out on the internet, now sitting at a 10-1 record, coming off 3 knockouts, and he wants Mike Tyson to be the next. Let's welcome back in Brian Campbell. BC, I did some internet digging. The top song when Mike Tyson, one of them, was born in 1966, was Strangers in the Night by Frank Sinatra. You're a music guy. In 1997, when Jake Paul was born, it was Wanna Be by Spice Girls. So we are going with a 31-year age difference between these two. Still, BC, people are going to tune in because this is Mike Tyson. What on earth do we expect at 58 years old?
By the way, I was in college when Jake Paul was born, so thanks for making me feel old. Not as old as Mike Tyson, but what are we expecting? A spectacle. Look, this is inside of AT&T Stadium. It doesn't get any bigger than this in combat sports, and you're putting together one of the legendary, most famous fighters in history against a real disruptor and YouTube star turned professional fighter Jake Paul, who has really tried to be the heel in professional boxing in this crossover bubble. Should a 58-year-old Mike Tyson be fighting against a guy 31 years, his junior? No, but the thing is, we saw Mike Tyson just 4 years ago in an 8-round exhibition pay-per-view bout against Roy Jones Jr., the fellow Hall of Famer. And Mike had no business being in the shape he was in, being as powerful as he still was, and fighting 8 hard 2-minute rounds, and really having the stamina, the poise that we didn't see over the second half of Mike's career, where really, after fighting Evander Holyfield in 1997, it was largely a train wreck the rest of the way. That was a great redemptive moment for Mike, but it was against another aging former, contemporary. What about this fight against the young Jake Paul? As much as I'm afraid, and we all need to be afraid of what happens if a 58-year-old man takes big punches in a fight, the fact that Mike can win this, and the fact that half of the people tuning in believe that he can, this is a little bit like Mayweather-McGregor from 2017, but also a lot different. Even though we're fighting 2-minute rounds, even though it's 14-ounce gloves instead of 10-ounce that we normally see in heavyweight, Mike Tyson needs to be looked at as a guy with a puncher's chance in this fight. The old champion getting up off the couch and defending the sport against this newcomer from outside the lines. It's got central casting, there's movie storylines. It also has the potential to be really weird. But at the end of the day, no matter if you love it, if you hate it, if you're protesting that it shouldn't happen, we're all gonna tune into Netflix Friday night to watch it. That's an absolute fact. So I can sit here and give you historical comparisons of weird fights like this, but I'm not sure we've ever seen one exactly like this, where the aging fighter who probably shouldn't even be in there actually has a chance to compete. Maybe the same chance he does to be carried out, beaten up by a 27-year-old in his prime. The fact that we don't know, that we're not sure, is the reason why this fight is happening.
Okay, so really quickly, though, I was listening to your podcast all morning. This is the fight you were referencing when you compared it to Rocky 6? Is that right?
Yeah.
Was it this one? Because I have not seen Rocky 6. So is this what Rocky 6 is, the fight we're getting Saturday?
It's unofficially Rocky 6. We know it as Rocky Balboa, but if you remember that storyline, it was a down on his luck Rocky Balboa in his 50s. He was a restaurant owner. He was watching TV, and what did they see? A simulation of him against the current heavyweight champion of that day, Mason Dixon, played by Antonio Tarver. And what did they do? They actually had an exhibition fight to figure out who's the best. And spoiler alert, Rocky competed against the younger guy. Never, ever did I think art would imitate life, and here we are, AG. But here we are, and like we said, say what you need to say. Get your popcorn ready. We're going to be watching.
Okay, before Saturday, I will watch Rocky 6 or Rocky Balboa, whichever Rocky it is. I'm going to skip everyone prior to that. Let's talk about how Tyson gets the win, because you did mention he can do this. Jake Paul said, or excuse me, Mike Tyson said about Jake Paul, he goes, he's a manufactured killer. I am a natural-born killer. So how does he get the win? And also, how fast does it need to happen?
Well, look, it's not likely that he gets the win. In the 14-ounce gloves, which may end up protecting Mike, I think also may prevent him from getting the idea of that one-punch KO. But it is possible that he could, and there's a few reasons why. One, Mike is not your typical 58-year-old. We saw that 4 years ago at 54 against Roy Jones Jr. Two, that quote you referenced from the pre-fight documentary that everybody's talking about, it's true. Jake Paul at age 20 was acting on a Disney show. Mike Tyson at age 20 was the heavyweight champion of the world. And he grew up differently, comes from bad surroundings. We know his story. Even though his image has been cleaned up the last couple of decades and he's become more of a lovable ex-celebrity, he can still fight. And for all the success Jake Paul has had against aging MMA fighters, against celebrities, against journeyman boxers, he did not have an amateur career. He's only 11 fights deep. He makes technical mistakes. And most of the people he has fought have been 2 weight divisions smaller than him and a lot older than him. In this case, Mike's a lot older than any opponent Jake has ever fought. But he's also still more dangerous. Power is the last thing to go. I can't even believe I'm saying this, but there's a reason why the odds aren't completely wide. It's because Mike Tyson has a chance of winning this. I can't believe it, but here we are.
It would be more fun to put money on him anyway, but let's talk about Jake Paul. A couple words you used there were journeyman and aging fighters. A lot of his fights have been manufactured. Granted, he has done very, very well. A 10-1 record. His only losses to Tommy Fury. What do you want to see from Jake Paul in order for him to get his hand raised?
Well, look, he's going to have to be really smart here, especially early, because if you're asking me, how does this fight go? Who wins it? It's dependent upon how long Mike Tyson can stay super dangerous. We don't know if that's a half of a round, 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds. He went 8 hard against Roy Jones. Can you do it again against a younger fighter bigger than him, the 6'1" Jake, who's legitimately strong, has legitimate punching power? Look, let's say this about Jake. He's not going to go in there and win a world title tomorrow against a real fighter. But in this crossover celebrity boxing bubble, which Jake and his brother Logan have kind of been the faces of, Jake's like pound for pound the best there is. The only time we saw him lose was against Tommy Fury, a guy equally his size, who's got a little bit of a fighting background, although that was a split decision, and Jake didn't score a knockdown in the final round. But Jake can box a little bit. But Mike Tyson has more experience than Jake will ever know inside the ring. Jake is the rightful favorite. He's got young legs. He's got big power. He's going to need to keep Tyson off of him. He's going to need to hold at times when Tyson gets close, because we know how dangerous Tyson can be with those uppercuts on the inside. But if you're Jake Paul, you're working behind that big jab, you're bringing a high pace, and at the very least, you're going to make that old guy work for it, and you're going to try to outlast him and stop him in the second half.
If he wins, someone with now 66 fights to his name, could he face Canelo next?
I think that's always been Jake Paul's goal. You'll hear him at times say, I want to win a world title. I want to be legitimate. But all of us, it might be too late for that, to be fair. But the one thing Jake Paul keeps saying that we used to laugh at is the idea that eventually he's going to fight Canelo Alvarez, the former pound-for-pound king, still the biggest star in the sport. You just have to wonder if Jake's a lot closer than we realize. Listen to this. Canelo's 34 years old. He's still one of the best fighters in this game. But he's on a matchmaking trend of late where he's looking for the biggest paydays, maybe not with the most risk. You're not seeing Canelo fighting David Benavidez right now, which the fans want, or Terrence Crawford, which the fans want. He's almost entering that second half of his career where he's looking to get big paydays. Is there a bigger one than Jake Paul if he goes out there in front of hundreds of millions of people on Netflix and knocks out the beloved Mike Tyson? If you're talking about pro wrestling heel 101, Jake already knows how to play that part. In fact, his brother Logan is a WWE superstar right now, as what odds makers expect him to do. And should he stand over Mike Tyson and gloat as a pro wrestling heel, did that wake up boxing fans and Canelo to say, enough of this? Let's make that fight, because we're going to make Jake pay for what he did. I know that's a romantic movie, pro wrestling storyline, but this is combat sports we're talking about. Storylines sell fights. I do believe Jake is getting a lot closer than we ever thought he was to the idea of what's a bigger spectacle than Mike Tyson. Well, there may not be a bigger one, but one almost as big is him and a legitimate superstar fighter like Canelo. Don't count it out. Just don't count it out, because this fight's happening on Friday, and we never would have thought we'd get here.
Also on Friday, and I hope people who are watching this tune in for this fight. And it could have easily been the headliner. These two women have sold out MSG. They could have sold out AT&T Stadium. We get Katie Taylor going up against Amanda Serrano. The second fight between these two women. The first one was in 2022. At a time, it was billed as the biggest fight in women's history. Taylor won via split decision. So get us ready for what we're going to see again on Friday.
Unbelievable that this fight, these two incredible future Hall of Fame women are getting the...
Climate problems are increasing. Cold and snowstorms are becoming a problem. Don't worry. Portable kinetic.
What do you think about the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight coming up? What do you think about the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight coming up? Who do you think's going to win? Is that your prediction, or who are you going with? Coach Keith Kepner here. All right, guys, the time has come. Mike Tyson, Jake Paul is right around the corner this Friday on Netflix. And a lot of people feel a lot of ways about this fight. I will say one thing I know Jake Paul has done is he's made himself the bad guy, and in this instance, Mike Tyson is the good guy. So it's all about marketing. And that's where it couldn't be more fitting to have Mike Tyson in this fight, because this is what Customato always talked about the entertainment portion, the exciting portion of boxing, and it being fan-friendly. And this is fan-friendly in the sense that Mike Tyson is fan-friendly. And Jake Paul puts on good shows. Make sure you stick around to the end of this video, though. I'm going to tell you not only my prediction, but also the number one thing to look out for in this fight that you're probably not going to hear anywhere else. And also, if you like this content, make sure you're subscribed. If you like it, comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts, no matter if they're approving or disapproving. Love the lovers and the haters equally. And also consider dropping me a super thanks, buying me a cup of coffee, because I'm doing this right now at 10 o'clock at night, and it helps keep me going. So we're finally here, guys. We're finally here on the eve of this fight. And I can't think of anything more than boxing is all about matchmaking, right? We think about boxing is all about the skills, all about the will, all these things. It's an exemplification of that hero type mentality, right? Of making it all right in one night, and the poetic stuff. And that is there in boxing. But a lot of people talk about that. I'm going to try to talk about some, my own interesting different takes on stuff, right? So boxing is all about matchmaking. And I know Jake Paul is a good matchmaker because I know him. When I had a guy fight on the undercard of the Jake Paul-Nate Diaz fight last August, the second we get off the plane, we go in the nice swanky hotel room, greeted there right away by his matchmaker, who I didn't know personally before that, but he knew my dad real well, recognized the name Kepner, and had a lot of good things to say about my father. And he and other people on Jake Paul's team are the mastermind behind what is Jake Paul, right? And that's where Jake Paul has been very smart. That reminds me of like when Henry Ford, I guess, was on trial for something, right? Something like with his newspaper, something like that, and they're questioning his knowledge of the world or whatever. And he said, well, I can just push a button and I can contact somebody, through wire or phone or whatever, to get that information at any moment. So what does it matter what I know at this moment if I have good people around me that do know, right? And that's something that Jake Paul has done, so you got to give him credit for that. But with matchmaking, it's all about matching up the right styles to go against each other, but then also catching people at the right time. And this is the right time for Jake Paul to take Mike Tyson, right? It wouldn't have been the right time back in 2005 if Jake Paul was where he is right now. It wouldn't have been the right time, obviously, in the early 90s or the late 80s, right? It would have been what everyone thinks this fight's going to be, or some people, your casual fan. But those in the know that Jake Paul's been preparing for this. So that's what makes it a real